Everybody, John Gucci Foley here. Welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today we have one of the world's experts on connecting spirituality and high performance together. His name is Tommy. I just gave him a call sign, Taco Baker. And this is about living on the razor's edge, okay? Living on the edge. And we talk about wisdom, but broken down into three simple steps. And that is knowing, doing, and being. And that's a little bit different, right? Knowing is any information. Doing, of course, is the understanding, but the being is the wisdom piece, right? Another quick, this podcast is full of all kinds of takeaways, I am statements, mantras. One is that high performance requires high vulnerability. Okay, jump into this episode. The cockpit is really on fire tonight. Glad to be here. Here we go. Hey everybody, I'm so excited. I got Tommy Taco Baker, and we just gave you a call sign, Tommy. All right. In the Blue Angels, man, we have call signs. But hey, you've got a new book coming out that right now is, I think, so needed in the world. First off, welcome to the High Performance Zone and glad to have you here.
John, thanks so much. Honored to be here. And I don't know if it's a good thing, but maybe that name is going to start sticking. So I'll blame you if it does.
and where'd we get Taco? How come you like Taco?
I put it on my website. A lot of the stuff that I do is and can seem very serious. Like you, I'm an obsessive learner. I read Seneca and Stoic philosophy. That's my idea of a wild Saturday night. But, I also like, part of this is also having fun. The growth of oneself is, I always have to remind myself, are you having fun? And if I'm not, and by the way, we can have fun when things are incredibly difficult, with a smile on our face. And that's always kind of an ethos that I'm looking to bring to the table. So that's where the taco enthusiast comes in.
Well, I love it. That's where the glad to be here comes in. I think you just nailed the ethos of glad to be here. And that's joyful effort, but making a difference in people's lives, right? Hey, tell me about Hustlers and Seekers. Now, this is your new book. What's the essence behind it? And why is it so needed in the world today?
Yeah, no, thanks so much for the question. So Hustlers and Seekers, I've been on an obsessive quest of self-transformation and growth, and really just trying to answer, what leads to a thriving life. First of all, how do we define success individually, and how do we get there? And what I've come to find is that there's a beautiful balance and a synergy we can call between hustle, and that's just a catchphrase for ambition and desire and performance and urgency and resilience and all of those things, which are so valuable. And then on the other side, there's the ability to disconnect, to do that inner work, to heal some of the past, to work on our emotional state, to connect to something bigger than ourselves, which I'll call seeking. And too often, at least in my experience, these worlds are treated as different, or treated as separate, or treated as they're not exactly working in synergy with one another. And so I wanted to create something based on my experience, because I've gone down the world of hustling so intensely that created achievement, but left me sometimes hollow, sometimes lost, sometimes not even able to appreciate the things that I'd created, and feeling like something was missing. And then I've also gone so far down the rabbit hole of seeking that I found out that it's not all sunshine, that you can use a spiritual quest as a form of avoidance at times, as a form of what they call spiritual bypassing, as a form of kind of not taking action on something because it's so convenient to live in this possibility or insight gathering. So the book is designed to help people merge those two parts of themselves. And the core argument is, hey, listen, John, these worlds are not only are they are meant to coexist, but they must coexist. And we all have them. And you have your own sweet spot based on your life and the season of life that you're in, John, and I have the same one. And it's all about finding our unique sweet spot.
Man, I love it. So a couple of things hit my head. It's two sides to the same coin, right? This idea of the process and mindset. both of high performance. You know, you talk about the combination of performance and mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
So I want to dive into that because I'm dead on. But first off, you had a word here that just triggered me. What season in life are you in right now?
Yeah, no, I love that. So
Yeah,
I'm in a season of creation, a season of outward growth, like
yeah,
very if one of my spiritual mentors in Sedona would call it a fire season, right? Because right now
nice.
I'm in the process of bringing this work out into the world. So it's important to know what season we're in, because I know that in January and February, I'll probably head to Sedona to do this. I'm going to shift the season. One of the issues with high performance is that because it's so intoxicating to identity, guys like you and me, guys and gals like you and me, the ambitious, our identity can get really wrapped up in that. And the
Yeah,
danger with that is that we get stuck in a rigid identity that never leaves. And so, for
yeah,
example, I was in a season for 7 years that was just like continuous going and going and going and going and going. And yet, if we look at nature, that's impossible. We're designed with nature, as one with nature. And so we need seasons of incubation. We need seasons of restoration. We need seasons of transformation, like the fall or the winter, where we're hibernating and collecting new ideas. And so it's important that I love using that metaphor, because all of us are in a different season. And if you know the season you're in, you can make the right choices and decisions in alignment with that season.
yeah. I love it. By the way, I spent a lot of time in Sedona also. My wife and I will spend a month. We'll rent a home out there. Who is your teacher in Sedona? Who do you like to go see?
Yeah, I have a mentor. Her name is Anahata Ananda. Actually, it's funny. I was just on her podcast last week. And
Nice.
but the place is just, I mean, we go and we often go to see her, but even if we don't, it's just, that's a place that, environment to me is so important,
Yeah.
because the moment that I start driving towards those red rocks, John,
Yes.
my ambitious self, or the one that's like always looking to go, it just starts throttling down, and it says, ooh, now it's time to do something different. Now it's time to
Yeah.
release and detach and just be, look at agave plants for 20 minutes just because it's there. So it's a beautiful, change up, and we need that. It's so important for us to change our environment from time to time and
Yeah.
experience novelty. Otherwise, again, we can become very rigid.
Isn't that amazing? In Sedona, you can feel the energy. I like what you said,
Yeah.
that those red rocks. I mean, it's a different place. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of spiritual seekers that go there, but it's not just that. You know, I know for myself and Carol, my wife, we mountain bike ride like crazy. And
Yeah,
Sedona is challenging, man. Do you get on mountain bikes?
I
Do you-
do. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because we during the last year, we were very close. My wife and I mean, we're looking to move to Sedona,
Yeah,
just
nice.
because we go so often, but it's full of mountain bikes and off-road stuff and all types of adventures. And it's just such a beautiful place where, again, you can experience it all, right? You can
Yeah.
experience the disconnection, but then you can, go down a gnarly mountain bike ride and be on the razor's edge, which is beautiful.
Let's talk about that, man. The Razor's Edge. You know, you and I have both been on that a few times. It's funny though. You mentioned about some gnarly downhills. I've got some scars from mountain biking in Sedona, where I took a serious spill. But I like it because I like the blood. You know, when I'm bleeding after a mountain bike ride, I know that I was pushing the limits and usually got a little bit beyond the Razor's Edge there. So, talk to me. What does the Razor's Edge mean to you?
Yeah, to me, it means, I kind of think of that we all have a certain capacity. And the cool thing about capacity in my eyes is that it's virtually limitless. So what's capacity? It's like, John, you and I right now, if we went to Camelback Mountain here in Scottsdale, you and I
Nice.
have a certain physical capacity to tackle that mountain. And so if we said, hey, we're going to hit this for time, me and you, let's go. Our physical capacity is going to be demonstrated there, but not just that, our mental
Yeah. You
capacity
know what?
as
I got
well.
to bet if we did that, I think you'd win. Okay. I got a feeling I got a feeling you're in seriously good shape, especially
We'll have
aerobic.
to do it. We'll have to do it, and we'll film the whole thing and see how it goes. But yeah, so physical capacity, mental capacity, emotional capacity. You have your capacity in what was your craft in aviation, right? And so we all have these capacities, and the razor's edge is having the courage to continuously step near the boundaries of our capacity. And it's interesting because we all have these boundaries, and at the boundaries is when we're most emotionally vulnerable. It's when you're, we could take the workout metaphor, but it's like you're in the workout and you're about to redline maybe, and the voice inside of your head says, hey, you didn't get enough rest last night, or it's too hot, or whatever excuse starts to come up. And then you're going to retreat and pull back. And at times that's the wise move. However, very often that becomes our status quo, and we never push the capacity. And so to me, the razor's edge, it's both on a micro, what you're doing for a workout, or, in this conversation, I trust that you and I are pushing our capacity individually and collectively so we can create something special to somebody listening. I mean, that's the intention that we created. But also in the macro of our lives, are we pushing the capacity? Are we pushing the edges of where we feel comfortable and we start to feel that unease? And so the reason why to me this matters is that, there was a time in my life where I wasn't doing that, and I was living my life, but I wasn't alive in my life. And those are two completely different things. And so today I'm blessed to help people to make sure that they're living their life where they're feeling alive on a daily basis. And to me, we can only feel alive when we're pushing, when we're living on that razor's edge and dancing on that razor's edge. And sometimes we're going to fall on our face, and like you did with the mountain bike in Sedona. But still, that doesn't, the outcome matters less than the actual process of being able to shut it down at night and say, hey, you know what? I showed up today this way in my life. And that creates a level of peace and fulfillment that it's really hard to find anywhere else.
Man, you're talking my language here. I've got an I am statement, and I'm going to ask you what your I am statement is. But part of my I am statement goes to live life in all its fullness. And then I realized, wait a minute, I can actually go beyond that. It's to give life in all its fullness, right? Give to others.
That. Yeah.
So that's part of my I am statement. But do you have an I am statement, a purpose? When you say I am blank, what is that blank?
Yeah, I actually have a list like this long of I am statements. It started with one of my mentors, like a decade and a half ago, one of his events. And he showed me this book, and it was this thick, like this thick, and it was his life book. And he had a list of gratitude that you couldn't stop flipping, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, one of the mantras and affirmations that he passed on to me was, I'm always at the right place at the right time with the right people to attract the right opportunities.
Love that.
That one gives me a lot of peace. There was another one. I am a genius and I apply my wisdom. Nice. Which is allowing yourself to recognize the inner genius that we all have. Right.
Yeah. Let's dive into that for a second. By the way, I love these mantras. I love the word mantra, right? Back to what you just said about being in the right place, right time. I feel that with this interview right now. I just want to say thank you. I thank you for being here. I thank you. I can feel the essence of what you got. There's so much to unpack. And I'm so grateful that we're having this time here, right? And it's perfect. Even though my studio, I'm not in my normal studio. It's like, hey, it's okay. Everything's
still
fine
perfect.
Right yeah, it's perfect because it's really about you, not me. So let's go to the idea of wisdom real quick. How do you define wisdom? This idea of genius and wisdom. What is your definition of that?
Yeah, I believe that we all come equipped with a certain genius, and that genius can be manifested in so many different ways. But it's a word that I'm fascinated by language as a writer, and it's a word that most people, they don't have much of a connection to. And I know for me, for a long period of my life, I didn't either. And so when I allowed myself to take ownership of that word, I was able to recognize the inherent genius and gifts that I have, but also be able to see genius in my everyday. And so,
I got a technique real quick before
yeah.
I want to see this, see genius in every day. So every day when I walk out, and I'm interested in your morning habits too, we'll get into these rituals, is I step off the bed with my left foot hitting the floor first. And the reason I do that with the left foot, it's just a trigger in my mind that tells me today's not normal. Today is extraordinary. Today is magical. It's that genius that's inside of us, is what I heard you just say.
Love that.
So that's a trigger that I use. Do you have any triggers?
Yeah, what you said reminded me. One of my favorite quotes from Dan Millman. He's an author.
Yeah,
has written like 15 books. Is there are no ordinary moments, right? And it's exactly what you just said. It's like it's so easy to get out of bed and plug into the conscious mind of I've seen this before. And that's really what ordinary is. I've seen this before. I've heard it before, John. I've tasted this before. And so going back to novelty, we were talking about Sedona and stuff. And I think that's why it's so important to create experiences that shift us out of our normal reality, or triggers, even something as simple as a trigger, to remind us that this is not ordinary. One of my I use 86-400 all the time. It's the seconds in a day. And I'm just constantly 86-400, 86-400, 86-400. And I'm saying that to myself because the cashier that I see at the store, that might be the last conversation I have, or the trail run that I went on this morning. If that was the last trail run, did I really experience it, or was I looking at Twitter? I don't even look at Twitter, but just an example. I have, my morning routine is designed to get me back into that state of extraordinary, and from a place of deep gratitude. And I sometimes don't use the word gratitude because it's so easy to treat it as a surface area, surface level thing. But when you unlock deep and humble gratitude, as you know, it's a creative force unlike any other. And what does that look like for me? It's like in the mornings, I'm literally, there's so much silence that I'm surrounded by on purpose. It's actually one of the reasons I came out to Arizona, but I'm listening to my heart pumping the 2,000 gallons that it's going to pump on a daily basis. Or
is it 2,000 gallons?
It's 2,000 gallons. Think about that, 2,000 of these on a daily basis. So when we think about that, it's like, is that not a miracle? But hey, we've had it for the last 40 years or however long we've been alive. So it's again, that becomes an ordinary experience. So for me, it's all the triggers in the morning are designed to get me back into that state of this is extraordinary. This is not just a conversation that you and I are having. This is an experience that we're creating that's never going to happen again, that on this day could only go to one place. If we had scheduled it 1 week later, you would have been in a different studio and maybe we would have gone somewhere else, and that would have been magical in its own right. But in this moment, there's nothing else.
Man, I love it. I had a mentor, and the title he came up with, and maybe you've heard this again, is make the extraordinary ordinary, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. It's what I hear you and I doing, is it every single day. First off, appreciate that it's extraordinary, but also be extraordinary. Be present. Make that moment super cool. So give me some of your techniques. I love that you said it's quiet. You create a quiet zone. I do the same thing when I wake up. What is your normal routine look like to make it extraordinary?
Yeah. So start with quiet and start with a consciousness practice. In the mornings, I'm going to go intense breath work to start my day, because that's going to put me in an open, expansive state. So I start with intense breath work, kind of like it's a combination of what I've done with my mentor actually in Sedona. She's one of the best breath work practitioners in the world. We'll have to do a session together if you're down in Sedona.
I'd love to.
We could do the four of us with my wife and your wife, or just you and I. But dude, we will go places that that I've never been anywhere else with any other breath work or even other modalities. So it'll be amazing. We'll put that on the books. But
I'm in, Tommy. Let's make that happen. That's cool. All right.
Yeah. So it's a combo of intense breath work, but then leading into a much more relaxed consciousness practice. The reason I start intense is that it really opens me up and activates me from, from being asleep. So there's that. These orders, I changed the order of these. Consciousness is always going to go first, but I do change the remaining orders depending on the day. And I think that's important to note because there's so many morning routines and we have so many toolkits, but I want people to intuitively find and create what's most relevant to them on any given day and what their body needs and what their spirit needs and what their mind needs. But for me, it's consciousness practice, absolutely non-negotiable. It's trail running out here in Arizona and just being immersed in nature. After the pandemic, I used to go to the gym, and I realized since the pandemic, I've only not gone 5 times. I don't know how many days that is, but and it's not just the physical; it's kind of the blending of the mind, body, and spirit all in one. Yeah. But the physical to me has always been a door for the higher realms. So by being out in nature, so there's that. To me, there's 90 minutes of non-negotiable creative work. So something that it's pressure free, it's deadline free, but it's creative work to me. That's usually going to be writing. And those are the main pillars. And then I'll sprinkle in all different things like journaling and obviously reading and listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But if I hit those pillars plus leave a heartfelt post-it note, I'm actually looking at some of the ones that my wife has left me. Nice. Leave her a post-it note or some surprise, something that she's not going to expect. Those are non-negotiable on a daily basis.
Wow, sweet. So first off, you and I are a lot alike. I want to learn from you on this consciousness and breath work and all these things that we're doing, because I do a similar thing. What I do in the morning very quickly is I wake up with gratitude, right? So I think, we talked about, I really like what you said. It's such a buzzword now. People are talking about it, but it is so powerful. And it goes well beyond just saying I'm grateful or thankful. Yeah, that's absolutely, appreciation is critical. But I think it's the essence. It's kind of the ethos of how you perceive the world, right? And too many times people, I think that the world's coming at you, but it's really not. It's coming from you, right?
Yeah.
We're creating that. And
love that.
And I forget that sometimes because it's real easy to be a victim, and also even when things are going well, right? I mean, you say, oh, well, it's coming from us, right? Both our good and our bad and all that. So my whole point on that is I think these habits, these rituals, and I love what you're doing every morning are so powerful for everyone. I love what I just learned is you put in 90 minutes of creativity. I need to work on that. Because I'm getting too much into just the execution mode, right? And deadlines and all that. And that creativity is so valuable, so valuable. Give me some ideas of creativity. You mentioned journaling, but how else? How do you get your creativity sparked?
Yeah, it's honestly, I will notice. I mean, it's been so long since I haven't done that. And by the way, 90 minutes, somebody listening, you might feel man, that's a lot. We'll start with 25, start with 50, start with, build the habit, 15 minutes of complete isolation from the world where you're focusing. And the reason I say creativity, John, is because, we, just like you said, creating, we're all creative in nature. And so it's such a primal thing to create. And yet, for me, the first 25 years of my life, I wouldn't be caught dead using the word creative. I never associated my identity with being creative. Didn't do that well in school. And so I never thought that, never connected with that. And yet now it's a word I use, every single day. And so to me, on most days, that will look like writing, because it helps me make sense of the world. And at the same time, it allows me to have a low stakes situation where I can push myself to do something I've never done, to write something I've never written before. So that's mine. But whatever, it could be a whole litany of things. It could be drawing, it could be journaling, it could be just something that doesn't have the pressure of that we can often find in work and business, and is more exploratory. And I'll tell you, the insights that come from that, John, are the most powerful that I've ever experienced. I mean, the answers that, when you're being creative in some way, it's coming from a place deep within. It's like if you break down the word inspiration, it's like aligned in spirit. It's coming outside of you, it's inside and outside of you in a beautiful way. And so anyway, whatever somebody listening, whatever your thing is, maybe you haven't done it. And this is the thing that I help people do, is because often they haven't done that thing for 5 years because, life is busy and the kids and it's hectic. And I absolutely understand that. But 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day of your creative endeavor, that can be enough. I know that is enough to fuel the rest of your day, no matter what happens.
Hey, I love that definition of inspiration. You said align in spirit. Did I get that right?
You got it. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. I've also heard inspiration. I was actually on a call with Stephen Covey today, and he talked about, and I've heard this many times too, and I've used this all the time. Inspire means to breathe life into.
Yeah.
To breathe
Yes.
life into, and align with spirit. And I love what I'm hearing you talk about, tapping into something deeper, our creativity, our intuition. And I think it's the universe, right? The world is coming through us. So we're tapping into something much deeper. I like to say, connect the heart and the head. A lot of times we spend too much time up here, right? So what does that mean? When I say connect the heart and the head, I could tell you lit up. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of us have been conditioned in separateness, that this is separate and this is separate. And then we're all these different pieces. And so when I hear heart and head, I just hear, that just alignment from the top down. One of the reasons, something that came up with inspiration when you were talking about, is that too many of us rely on the need to feel motivated to do something. I need to feel motivated to hit the gym. I need to feel motivated to work on my craft. I need to search outside of myself. And the thing is, motivation is inherently external, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? Somebody listening to this, like, I hope you get motivated. But what would really excite me, and I bet it would be the same for you, John, is that if what we discussed today inspired someone, and the difference between that is that motivation is going to live on the surface area. It's going to be more head-based. I got to do this. Let's go. Okay. Sometimes we all need that high octane fuel. We understand that, but it's high octane and it doesn't last. And it's very dependent on external conditions. And you always got to go back to the well, to get more. Inspiration to me is different. Inspiration actually accesses the heart first, or the spirit first, whatever you want to call it, and then kind of works its way up. And meaning it's a more sustainable, long-lasting, form of energy. It's like, I know for you, when you're doing something that's purposeful, John, it doesn't really matter how tired you are or not. You could probably do one of these conversations just like I do. And, I've done conversations like this when I've had food poisoning and stayed up the night before, or you was traveling, in a third world country. It doesn't matter. Those external circumstances don't matter. I'm going to show up because it's from a deeper part. And that's when I think of inspiration and head and the heart. That's exactly what comes up.
Wow. I love, as you were explaining that, I felt like this fire in my heart area, and it's like a light. It then, it goes outward, right? And I think about when you really feel your heart open, right? It's amazing, right? I just got goosebumps thinking about it, right? And sometimes you can't plan it. You'll be on stage giving a talk, you'll be helping somebody, and something just opens up, and those goosebumps come. I know yesterday I was actually speaking at a business meeting, Transamerica, a lot of top leaders, and the event coordinator came up to me and said, "Hey, John," she actually said Gucci, because I go by Gucci, your taco now, at least from today, right? And she goes, "Hey, Gucci," she goes, I have a friend that has an artistic son. do you have a few minutes to spend time with them? I said, absolutely. Well, we not spend time. We brought him on stage. This is like 15 minutes before the event's going to kick off, right? And I had my Blue Angel helmet, right? And so I handed it to him. He goes, oh, wow. He says, it's so light. And I said, do you want to put it on? He goes, yeah, man. And so we got these pictures of this wonderful, wonderful kid with the Blue Angel helmet on, and it's got a gold
so cool.
visor. Yeah, and it was interesting is after the talk, and I was in the book line, and he comes up, and it was so cool because they handed me a drawing. In fact, I got it in the other room, but it was a drawing that he made of the helmet, right? And so it made an impact on his life, right? And that's one of those magical moments, what you're just talking about. I mean, it wasn't planned, and one of the things that I do in the morning is I say, may I be available to whatever is going to happen today, and make sure I'm aware. And I actually do this, I believe with you, physical, right? Get outside, feel the energy. But I open up my chest, I open up my arms, and I just say, hey, I'm available for whatever comes your way. Do you have any kind of things like that?
That's so cool. And that's like so exactly what we were talking about. You inspired him to create that, right? That was his creation coming out because he wasn't motivated to create it. You unlocked something inside of him where he said now, and that's the beautiful thing about the things that you and I do and other people do for us, is that when we're inspired by somebody else, our inner nature, it's a reflection of our inner nature and our inner desire to create something as well. So that's why he was able to draw that. That's so amazing. I love what you said that though, because that's actually, that's part of the ethos of seeking, which is I'm huge on setting goals and having a vision and all of that stuff. And it's beautiful, having a target in our lives, having a compelling horizon to wake up to is psychologically crucial. It actually helps us be more present by having something in the horizon that's exciting us, that's giving us hope and wonder and awe. We know what to focus on in our day to day. Otherwise, it can be very tough to actually access the present moment. So it's quite of a paradox. However, the best moments in life are the ones that are not planned. And so I always say, leave space for the mystery, leave space for the magic, leave space for the unknown. Otherwise, if you don't, you'll be so full, or your reality will be so full that the opportunity of your life, or to have one of those goosebump moments, or like you shared with the helmet on stage, it's just going to pass right by you. You'll be at the coffee shop and you'll be focused on something else, and an incredible connection is just going to walk right by you. So to me, it's a mantra of sorts, which is when I look at my week, when I look at my calendar, for example, like even something as simple as back-to-back meetings. I don't do that stuff anymore, because I used to do that. And I'd notice that at times there was a thread that we were pulling on with someone else, and we wanted to go deeper, but one of us had to go. And, usually it was me, because I had someone after, and I wasn't leaving space for the magic. I wasn't leaving space for the unknown. And I think it's important to allow for that space. And I love that you have a physical practice around it. For me, it's like, often when I go, when I enter doors, so even like when I come in the door of the studio, this office, there's just a trigger that says, open your eyes to the magic, open your eyes to the mystery. Just be aware, because if we're not aware, we're literally going to miss it. And it could be life-changing. Even one of those events that happens, one of those goosebump events, I mean, that can carry us on for months. I mean, it's stuff that we'll continue to talk about.
Wow. I love what you just mentioned about the entering your studio and going through the door and having a trigger. A good friend of mine was Russ Francis. He played for the New England Patriots, tight end, way back. And we were talking about triggers, and he used was when he's running through the tunnel, and then he hits the stadium and the crowd's there. Your mind can get in all of us here, right, distracted with all the stuff that's going around us. So his trigger was when he ran past the goal line. This is coming onto the field. He would button his chin strap. And the idea of buttoning the chin strap on the goal line was meant, hey, it's go time, right? It's game time. And I love this for work, though, because you gave an analogy. Not all of us are going to play football at that level, right? But the idea of walking into your office, are walking
Yeah.
into your studio and saying, this is magical, creating the space for magic. I love that, man. Great, great analogy.
Yeah. Otherwise, going back to the extraordinary, ordinary, otherwise it's just a room,
Yeah.
it's just a place where your laptop is. How special is that? But if a simple trigger, a simple shift of awareness, you walk into that door frame, you walk into your home office, now your awareness is going to be just a little bit different. And our awareness is the lens to our experience, just like you said in your quote about, that we're creating, we're generating our lives. And so intent is everything to me. If you intend for today to be special, you're going to find it. If you intend for today to be negative in 2021,
Yeah.
you're gonna find negativity anywhere, right? And to me, you'll attract it. It's gonna come to you. And so why not just go, if you're gonna show up anyways, right? Because this is not about things that are complicated or take too much time, energy, and effort. We're showing up anyways. You're showing up anyways. You're showing up to your work anyways. You're showing up to your family. You're showing up with your kids anyways. Why not just go the extra mile, 10% more, so you can experience the 90% that most people don't?
Yeah, man, you just hit a big word. And then, by the way, I'm going to go to the comeback rate because I want to talk about, we're
Awesome.
talking about when all of this is positive and stuff,
Yeah.
but we all know that, hey, there's a lot of pain out there. There's a lot of challenges, right? But so we're going to go there in a second. But I do want to hit with the idea of perception and awareness. So you just brought that out. What is this? What can you share? By the way, it's brilliant so far what you're sharing. The idea of perception. There's the classic example, the glass is half full or half empty. It's just like you're saying, it's there, right? We're going to show up. But how do you talk about that idea of perception or awareness? Kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it goes back to narrative is the most important, to me, the most important technology that we've ever developed. So narrative, the ability to tell stories outwardly to others and that move people, but also to ourselves. And so at any given time, we're telling ourselves some type of story that's going to frame our perception and our awareness. So this podcast, this conversation could be, this is another podcast. Like that could be a story that we tell each other. And we're going to show up.
By the way,
That's
that.
Yeah.
It already, magic has already happened. So
totally. But I
though.
think it comes from intent on both of our parts without us even, co-creating that, just on our own, the intent that we came in with. But I want to share like a simple example, because if it's just another podcast, then the way that you notice your reality and your awareness and your perception, it's going to be built on top of that. It's like a lens. It's a filter to our reality. And the reason why this is so important, or, it's like I work with entrepreneurs and they'll say, they'll have the narrative that marketing doesn't work for me. Let's just say something random like that. Okay. If that's the lens, then they're going to go out into the world and everything they see is going to pull on the belief that, hey, marketing doesn't work for me. And we're just, as creatures, we just want to, whatever the belief is, we want to make sure it's right. And so the cool thing is that we get to decide that belief. So it's absolutely everything, our awareness, and it's going to determine the quality of our experience. And so is this just another workout, or is this a chance to express your body in a way that's fun, adventurous, and powerful? I just made that up. Two different stories, but one is going to lead to a better experience. And shifting our awareness is a practice. Sometimes we do it amazingly well, and sometimes we go into autopilot mode and we notice after the fact, when we debrief, like we talk about, that we didn't take the steps to just take a moment. And it's literally, that's all it takes. It just takes a moment. It's like before you come home tonight, if you've been out all day and you're about to see your family, there's a shift of awareness that happens. You just close your eyes for 10 seconds and you say, you repeat some mantra in your mind that now is the time to connect. Now is the time to love. Whatever yours is, you're going to show up differently.
Wow, man, I love that. So mantra, you just hit me on one. I love that. The idea there's lots of mantras. One I do every morning is bless me indeed and bless others through me, right? The
Ooh, I love
idea is
that.
not enough just to ask for blessings. And indeed means a lot, by the way. It doesn't mean, hey, a little, I mean, come on, man, bring it on. And
Yeah.
but if I were to stop there, that's not enough, because I realize it's about blessing others, right? And that giving back, that purpose larger than self. You got any mantras that I can use in that genre?
In the genre of like awareness
Yeah.
or yeah,
Well, and
that's
giving back, purpose, that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I definitely have some. I'll think of some as we go through this conversation.
Great.
Like I said, I have this list and they come up
Yeah.
intuitively, but it'll definitely come up. I got some for you.
Okay, good. Because that's the goal. We'll compile all these wisdoms. We talked about that before, right? The idea of genius and wisdom, but I don't think we
Yeah.
even got to wisdom. But to me, wisdom is not knowledge. It's not understanding. I think there's three
Yeah.
forms, right? Knowledge we can get anywhere, right? Bam. In fact, there's too much of that coming in. Understanding
Correct.
is, can you actually apply that? Have you, not only can you, have you done it, right? I mean, flying a jet, okay, it's one thing I can read the manual, but man, I got to get in there and actually do it.
Yeah.
But wisdom is even beyond the understanding, right? And that is, not only can you teach someone else, but do you know the actions to not only what take or not take, right? A lot of times wisdom is what not to do, right? It's
Yeah.
the why, it's the when. So just some thoughts in my mind. How do you differentiate wisdom?
No, I love that. That's such a great framework. To me, wisdom. So there's some parallels. I kind of think of three stages as well. There's the knowing stage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the accumulation of information. Then there's a doing phase, which is the practice, and the practice is the messiness of what worked and what didn't work, and application and reps and mastery, or whatever that looks like. And then there's at some point, to me, when we hit the wisdom, we've gone from knowing to doing, and then we go into the being mode.
Nice.
And I know, like, wisdom is like when you're with someone wise, and it's not even about what they're saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just who they are, who they've become through those two processes. So that's how, but I love your framework. I mean, it's spot on.
Well, you taught me, because it's the same framework, right? You just got clearer words: knowing, doing, being. Oh, that's nice. Now I can see why you're such a good writer, man. That's awesome. Hey, okay,
Thank you.
so back to your book, because it's so powerful, and it's coming out in October, right? We're not
Yeah.
sure when. Towards the end of October.
Yeah, end of October, probably the last week, 10/26. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So everybody, make sure you reach out. We'll get contacts on that. But part of it is this idea of a comeback rate, right? Or emotional
Yeah.
resilience. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that, because a lot of people are struggling right now. We all have challenges in our life. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So to me, comeback rate is kind of what I consider one of the secret pillars of long-term performance and long-term growth for all of our lives. And it's really simple. We're gonna get knocked on our ass like that. That's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how often it happens. And by the way, you can't live on the razor's edge. You can't want to live on the razor's edge if you're not ready to get your ass kicked. Like Brene Brown says, if you're in the arena, you're going to get your ass kicked. It's going to happen. So, and by the way, there's going to be circumstances like we've dealt with during the last 18 months that are also going to, emotionally whiplash. High growth to me requires high vulnerability. It requires high physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual vulnerability. And that's why I am constantly reminding people of this, that when you're going through questioning and you're wondering, are you capable of doing this? Who am I to do this? You're going through imposter syndrome. Maybe it's too late. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too young. I always say, what if all of that questioning meant you were exactly where you needed to be? Not that you were supposed to retreat back, not that you were supposed to quit, not that you were supposed to give up. What if that questioning meant that you were actually on that razor's edge? And as we know, on that razor's edge, it's like we're not standing on firm ground. We're standing on ice skates and anything can happen. And so comeback rate is the ability to, hey, in this moment, I'm clear on my purpose, I'm clear on my why, and I'm present. I'm going to go out into the world. I'm going to create something here virtually, and I'm going to get rejected, or somebody's going to say no, or I'm going to question if this is good enough, or a critic is going to come up out of nowhere, or some challenge is going to come out of nowhere. Comeback rate is how fast are you able to take what I call a valley, which is just, a down moment or a down situation, and come back into that state of clarity, into that state of purpose, into that state of open-heartedness. And the cool thing is, and the problem, as you know, John, with this is that comeback rate is invisible. It's the invisible marker of growth. We can see money in the bank account. We can see followers. We can see all of these impact stages when you give a keynote. You can see that. It's tangible. It's real. But comeback rate, it's invisible. And usually what's invisible is less valued in our culture. However, the reason why this matters is that because let's say, Steve is listening and he's out there building his business and implementing the principles from the podcast. If 9 months ago he experienced a challenge that threw him off center, maybe it took him 2 days to get back. Maybe it was a big challenge and it took him 2 full days to get back to clarity, comeback rate. Okay, that's fine. That's our benchmark. What if 9 months later, today, he experienced a very similar challenge and it took him an hour and a half? That's massive progress from 2 days to an hour and a half. And so I look at comeback rate as a skill that the best people, the best people in any field aren't necessarily the most talented or the most skilled or the most hardworking. A lot of those ingredients are important, yes. But what separates most people, in my opinion, is their ability to come back at a faster clip to that state of clarity. Now, on a day-to-day basis, in a week-to-week basis, what does it matter if your comeback rate isn't good? You're right. Maybe it doesn't. But if we compound it over time, over 6 months, 18 months, 5 years, now we have 2 radically different experiences.
Yeah, man, I love the analogy you're making there. This comeback rate. I was thinking about flying with the Blues. It's so important that you're resilient, and I'm talking airborne even, right? It's not even the briefs and debriefs. You may have a bad maneuver, and I'm telling you, you may have almost killed yourself. I've had those maneuvers where you're coming up. So it's this one time, you're gonna love this comment. We're practicing. We're in the desert, and I'm coming directly at the crowd, and the maneuver is to roll your jet 270 degrees and then pull full stick deflection, 7.5 G pull through the exhaust of the other jet. You got to go behind them.
Making my palms sweat.
Well, and now here's, and you pull it, and you're doing that 400 miles per hour, right? 500 miles per hour. So stuff's happening fast, and I'm learning. I'm training. I'm number 6, and we go ready, hit it, and I roll my jet, but instead of rolling 270, I roll about 280. So just a little bit of overbank, but the G's coming on because I'm fully, pulling it back. So the next thing I know is I go from this, you're at 200 feet when you do this maneuver, to the next thing I know, these bushes or cactus go from little dots to pretty big, and I'm realizing I'm about to impact the desert floor, and, luckily had enough time to correct and pull out of it. But talk about your heart and your throat, I'm like, holy shit, I mean, and then guess what? You're still flying the jet, and you have exactly 45 seconds to get in position for the next maneuver, which is even going to be more scary and harder than that. Right? So when that's
comeback rate at the high, that's comeback rate at the highest possible stakes. Yes.
So I love what you're talking about, because I go, and there's a technique I use, and tell me if you teach this or use that, is very quickly, I've got to take that bad experience. And that's why I can't wait to hear about your techniques here on the dark side and all this kind of stuff and how to overcome. And I got to put that in the back of my mind. I call it compartmentalization. If I keep remunerating on that, if I keep thinking
Yeah.
about it, almost kill myself, then I'm not in a good state for the next maneuver. So what I've realized is, though, you can't just fake it either. I mean, this has impacted you, right? You just can't say, "Oh, don't think about it." No, shit, your mind is worried, right? So I've learned to just put it in the back of my head. I've told my brain, I said, "Hey, you know what? You got some. I get it. We'll figure that out in 45 minutes when I land. As of now, take the back seat because I've got something else I need to focus on." And it worked for me. The skill of
Yeah.
compartmentalization. How about you? What do you got?
Yeah, I love that. And in high stakes situations, I mean, that's absolutely crucial. And to me, it's similar. And then this is kind of what happens after, because I think, especially men, we're really good at that. We can
Mm-hmm.
be really good at taking something that was a challenge and then just putting it in a black back closet and then not opening it up again. And so,
Well, I love that you mentioned about
yeah,
men because that can be a detriment, right? Especially in relationships. Because I am trained on that. I'm good at that, and it doesn't work, right? You got to be vulnerable. You
exactly.
got to be open. But keep going. Go for
No, it's an important skill in high stakes situations, life, business, even parenting, all of those things. But
it. Mm,
at some point, we got to move on to the next step. And the next step for me is just identify. So you're identifying the challenge, the issue, usually the emotion, right? Owning it. So just being able to own it. And when you own it, its energy starts to diffuse, but you allow it to kind of pass
mm,
through you in a sense. And then it's the last step is release. And the release is like, okay, now I've identified it, I've owned it, and now I can finally allow it to pass through me and release it. Now there's a lot of ways to, I like to physically manifest, like release it many times in the form of physical activity, et cetera, maybe a primal
yep.
yell from here or there. If I'm out in the wilderness. However, many times we don't do that. And what we do is we actually distract ourselves away
Yep.
from identifying, owning, and releasing. And over time, these emotions start to get clogged up, and it's like small deposits here, small deposits there. And then 9 months later, we're in this really tough emotional place because there's been so much residue. So that's just a simple framework that I use. And by the way, you can use this with
Like
the smallest of challenges or the biggest of challenges. You can use it from you got cut off in traffic to the pandemic. So what are the emotions that you're feeling around the pandemic? Identify them, like without shame, without guilt. This is how I'm feeling. There's no need for censorship. You got to own that 100%. Two, and two is ownership. This is
yeah.
my reality, and this is what I'm feeling. And once you go through that, usually that starts to lower the volume, and then you can say these emotions are part of me, but they're not who I am. Now I'm able
Yeah.
to release them.
Wow. Hey, I'm going to use that today because I like how clear you are on that. And I already, and of course, I want to share this with my wife. I want to share it with other people because it hurts me to see them struggle, right? Especially
Yeah.
people close to you, right? And,
Yeah.
and I know what's not working is telling her, well, just let it go, and, and it's like, come on, that doesn't work. But I like what you said, those 3 steps to that releasing before you release it is own it, identify it first, then own it. So that's helpful stuff, man. That's going to change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, John. During the pandemic, I consider myself very empathetic. I really feel I haven't gotten a massage in 2 years because when I go to the massage therapist, they tell me their life story. Like I can't relax because
Oh,
they're telling me all their issues and stuff like that. And I feel there's just an empathetic part of me that gives them permission to say, hey, I can speak to this gentleman here. But like during the pandemic, for example, I just felt the heaviness of people in my community. I felt the heaviness in myself, like all of this stuff. And so when I went on my trail runs for like 3 weeks every day, man, the emotions were flowing, and I'm totally cool with emotions flowing one day, but then I was like, it's been 3 weeks. Like, what the hell is happening here? But I followed exactly what I just shared with you, which is we don't have to know exactly where the emotions are coming from. They might come from past hurt or past circumstances, maybe even past traumas of some sort, maybe somebody else's energy. this whole asking why, it can be helpful in like therapeutic modalities, but rumination often goes nowhere. So, but the ability to own the emotion, just say, it's Tuesday, I'm in this place and I'm feeling deep sadness. Even just saying that to yourself, the sadness just starts to starts to go down. And then you can finally go to where we all want to go, which is the let it go phase. But we can't skip the first two.
Brilliant. Hey, we've been going. This has been a wrap, man. I'm loving it. I don't want to wrap with you yet. I got a couple more questions, and then we got to do this again. There's just too much good stuff.
Live in Sedona.
Well, absolutely, and I'd be honored to be on your podcast. I know you're crushing it. So everybody knows. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, it's called Resist Average. And again, similar, we like exploratory conversations about, what does it mean to live a thriving life? And what are the things, what are the mindsets, what are the strategies, what are the tools and practical components that somebody can use? And very rooted in what we're having right here, like real talk, like the real challenges of life, that it's going to get dark, it's going to get lonely, it's going to be difficult. But then what? What are you going to do with that? That's the ethos of the Academy.
Beautiful, man. I'd love to be on.
We'll definitely, we will, for sure.
Everybody listening to this, check it out, right? And we'll have some tidbits. Hey, 88-12 rule. Okay, what is that? I know the 88-20 rule. And so everybody maybe doesn't know it, is in business, there's a rule that 80% of your business comes from 20% of your let's say customers. And I believe that there's a lot of fact to that. What's the 88-12 rule?
Yeah. So this is my take on, hey, a decade and a half, just like in the trenches of transformation and looking at what actually moves the needle and what creates results. And like you said earlier about knowledge, we live in a world where we've never had more information. It's just, if you want to find out anything, you have a blueprint, you can download a training step by step. But why isn't it working? And it goes back to what we just said. It ties in brilliantly, which is the 88-12 rule says, and this is not scientific, so there's no peer-reviewed research on this, but this is purely anecdotal from being in the trenches of people's lives, thousands of people, which is, for any result that you want to create in your life, anything that you want to bring to life, it's 88% is what's happening in between your ears. And I'll just call it the emotional work, which is exactly what we were talking about before. Whether that's launching a business, whether that's writing a book, whether that's creating a screenplay, launching a podcast, building a family, it's 88% what's happening here. Can you face difficult emotions and overcome them, especially the quote unquote negative ones? And then the 12% to me is the tactical, is the strategic, is the bullet points, is the specific actions that are going to bring that to life. But we often have it reversed. We focus on just the strategy and we wonder why it's not working. We wonder why we can't make the progress. And it's because the strategies and the actions are built on an emotional house of cards. And the moment that it gets tough, the emotions just take over and we quit and we stop. So that's an idea I've been playing with for a few years. 88-12. It's not scientific, but I've seen it so many times in so many different people from different cultures and different lives trying to create different things that I can say it's pretty accurate. Man,
I'm digging it. Plus it's catchy. 88-12. I like it. I like it. But more importantly, I agree with you 100%. And that is, it's the mindset, is way more important than the actions, the process, right? Yeah. And I love that you talk about that. You also have a 1% rule. So since we're in these percentages, which we
got a lot of rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, give me that one. What's the 1% rule?
Yeah. So the 1% rule is a simple way to really, a lot of us here trust the process, love the process, embrace the process, but that can be hazy. Like, what does that actually mean on a day-to-day basis? And so I created the 1% rule because I'd see and help people create these big visions, but then they'd wake up on a random Wednesday morning and they'd be here and the vision would be all over there. And all they could look at was what's in between. And so the 1% rule is basically, you have your vision, whatever that may be, you're clear on that. and you reverse engineer all the way down to what's the one step that I can take every day, the smallest step. And it has to be so simple that it almost seems nefarious. It almost just seems pointless. Why this is so easy. It takes 10 minutes a day, Tommy. And that's exactly what we want, because the 1% rule is all about stacking small wins every single day, just stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking, adding in the compound effect of time. And then you wake up and you're at your vision instead of focusing on what's missing. And it's all about harnessing the number one. We talked about motivation earlier. The number one human motivator in our lives is actually just progress. If we're making progress in our lives, that's the number one thing that keeps us going. And so the 1% rule is like, how can we just stack small wins compounded over time? Now, I'll tell you, it's not sexy. It's not going to sell out, massive arenas. But if you just stay with it on a daily basis, it takes the pressure off is really what it does. It's like, okay, as a writer for me, my 1% rule is 250 words a day.
Nice.
If I can't write 250 words a day, I'm just pathetic, John. So I've written 250 words a day.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that I'm pathetic, which is okay. I'm with you on that. No,
I'm pathetic. No, if I can't write 250, it's something it's tied to my
small,
vision,
achievable,
and it's so small that on my worst possible day, I'm going to hit 250. But I know that every day when I do get to 250, now I'm getting warmed up. Now I'm going to hit 600. Now I'm going to hit 2000. And it's the same thing with other areas of life. It's really just about getting back the power of small wins compounded over time.
Well, I'll give you something sexy. Okay. You said that's not sexy. It's really sexy. I'll tell you why. And that's how in the Blue Angels, how we go from flying closer together and lower to the ground than any other team in the world, 18 inches at 500 miles per hour. But we don't start there, right? We're 10 feet apart, 3 feet apart, 1 feet. We're getting 1 inch better every day. We're getting 1 foot lower to the ground. And it's exactly what you just said, is the stacking of those small improvements over time. And the next thing you know is you're operating at such a high level, you don't even realize that you weren't doing that. Yeah, it's so cool.
That is very sexy.
All right.
Now we will sell out the arenas with that story.
Absolutely, man. It's real. It's a real example. Yeah. It's not, it's not.
Well, I saw the videos. I saw the cockpit video, and I'm like, my mind is like, how are you so damn close? It's like, it's insane. And you just answered the question, is because you started here and you got better and you got better and you got better and you got better. And then boom.
Yeah, I was just with the Blues yesterday. It was great. They got the new Super Hornet out, and we're having our 75th reunion here coming up in November. So a bunch of the old guys, me, I'm an old guy now, are getting together.
Yeah, right.
And telling fish stories. But what's interesting is just what you're talking about is that is the ethos. The Blues have an ethos of two things, and it's everything we've been talking about here. It is this operational excellence piece, but it's with this glad to be here mindset. And that's what I say, because that's your 88% rule. Yeah, I could go on forever about operational excellence and all that steps. And it's not that they're not important, but whatever. The differentiator is the mindset. The differentiator is what you bring to the table, your unique value proposition, as you called it, right? Or you were talking about your genius, right? So, two questions for you, okay, to wrap this up, and then we're gonna meet again, man.
Absolutely.
I want to know, what is glad to be here? This mindset that I call glad to be here, this operational excellence that I call glad to be here. What does that mean to you? What does glad to be here mean to you?
I love that. It's this moment. It's very aligned with 86-400 to me. That glad is an energetic state. To be is so much more powerful at a core level than to do. So energetic state plus I'm being that energetic state, and I'm present in this moment. I'm not wasting it on some, lost in some future situation that's not real or stuck in the past of some highlight reel or some other challenge. Glad energetically to be being in this moment. So I love it, man. I broke that down after I heard it a few times on your podcast, because it's beautiful.
Beautiful. Thanks for that. I'm teaching. I'm actually going out on Monday. That's why I'm in a different studio today, to New York to work with the healthcare organization called Catholic Health, and they're like 25% of all what's going on in Long Island. And you know how much challenging our healthcare
Yeah.
system's going through, especially in New York now too, with vaccines, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. And that's how I'm going to end my 4.5-hour workshop. It's the glad to be here broken down, just what you said, as a mantra, glad to be here. So you did it. And I love what you just gave me, this idea of energetic, but also being, the to be state, and the presence of the here. So, it's funny, my team and I, we were just doing the workshop storyboard a couple hours ago. And you just nailed it. It's like you were on our call, man. You were on our call. So that's
awesome.
Beautiful. I'm glad you did that. I want you to leave us all with a couple more of those mantras, maybe I am statements, maybe a live with, something that you want to share with the world, that you live your own life by.
Yeah. Another one that I tell my clients all the time is that, is the following statement, which is, you'll never be as free as you are right now. And I specifically share this with them because they are ambitious and they have these big desires and these big dreams, and it's a beautiful pursuit. But I continuously drip that into their conscious and subconscious mind, which is really a fancy way of saying, don't miss this moment. Don't miss right now. Because one day you're going to look back and you're going to long for this moment. Even though you have so much desires to go there. So that's one I'm constantly reminding people, is that, like, in this conversation, I'll never be as free as I am right now if I'm present in this conversation. And that's really what it is. It's like, how can we get back and access the present to find that freedom that we so often long for?
Man, you helped me. I can see why you're such a great coach, mentor, author. Because I'm actually at my sister's house right now, and I've got a car service waiting out there to take me to the airport to fly to Chicago to speak tomorrow. And I'm sitting here going, my mind's like, oh, you got to hurry up. And I'm like, no, this moment is the most precious moment right now. I also want to take time with her, so
that's awesome.
And the specialness of that. So thank you. You really helped me today. I know you've helped a lot of other people. How can people get a hold of you? I want them to buy your book. That's Hustlers and Seekers by McGraw-Hill, right? But you do other things. I mean, you do a ton of great things. We'll put it in the show notes. But how can people best get a hold of you or be aware and interact with you?
No, that means the world, John. Right back to you. If this resonated on any level and the Hustlers and Seekers stuff resonated, you can go to hustlersandseekers.com. We're doing some cool stuff before that comes out, including a small seminar and giving away some courses and stuff. So hustlersandseekers.com. And this is a podcast where you get very similar conversations. If obviously you're here, go to resistaverageacademy.com. You can find the podcast and you'll find very similar things. And just stay tuned for when Gucci joins the show.
All right. Thanks,
2.
brother. Tommy, you're awesome, man. This has been one of my favorite podcasts. I really love what you're doing out there in the world. Keep it up, brother. Glad to be here.
John, just want to acknowledge you for your relentless enthusiasm for learning, because even just in this conversation, you're literally saying, hey, I'm here and I got the car service and this is what I'm going through. And that's really, it's infectious, and not everybody has that to that degree. So I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you for having me. I'm humbled and honored to be here, and keep inspiring, man.
Yeah, you too. Glad to be here.